Well, Mr. Wags, back out of, I'm not gonna call it storage, but kind of disuse. The rear coilovers have settled enough where I really need to get back on it and raise them up a little bit. You can tell I drove this thing through one salty day, and those adjusters are already super nasty. So I gotta pull off the rear wheels, and then I have to drop pull out the rear lower mounts, and then drop the control arm so that I can get at the adjuster and I crank it up about 3/4 of an inch, and then put it all back together with the trans jack. And then I've got a wheel speed sensor to put on this corner because that shat the bed as well. So, car needs a little bit of love. Surprisingly simple once you've done it a few times. Brought it over to the vise because I'm gonna have to free this thing up. I'm also gonna mark it so I don't go too crazy with it. Now that is the ride height this car should have always been at. It's perfect. Unfortunately, I ruined one of the shocks doing this. Somehow the little stud on the bottom broke off, so I'm shopping now for Bilsteins or Conies for the back, but that should be just primo. And this thing just showed up for a manual swap. I'm noticing a pattern here. I think this is a 2001 330 Ci bad reverse D drum. Wow. Actually a pretty reasonably clean car though. So that's going in tomorrow. I don't have almost any of the parts here yet, but I've been doing a lot of due diligence on this one, so hopefully this one goes much smoother than last week. Constant change of scenery on nice days. Took the Ferrari out, taking this on a fairly lengthy road trip and going to a couple of shows this month, so I'm daily driving it basically to make sure that it shakes down okay. What I'm gonna do today actually pertains to the engine out. When I did it, I had to purge and disconnect the air conditioner, and I never replaced it. So as a follow-up to the KC128 video that we never really finished, unfortunately, I figure I'll kind of show you guys how to pull a vacuum on and then at least pseudo correctly charge an AC system, R134A anyway, which is the type of refrigerant. Yeah, so step one, I'm gonna get my vacuum pump, my manifolds, and my nozzles, or whatever you call those things, out, and I'll find where the service ports are on this car, which I don't really remember. I think one's near here, the other one, I know things have to be taken apart a little bit, but we'll find them. It's so obvious and simple. Take out a bunch of Phillips screws, and we've got the suction line and the pressure line. So I'm gonna take out my manifold again and hook it up. And I've got both of the lines connected. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. Hooked up to the manifold. So that should be good. And now what I'm gonna do is hook the vacuum pump up to the yellow line and start pulling a vacuum for probably a couple of hours. What that's gonna do is it's gonna pull as much moisture and air out of that system as possible. The dryer has a desiccant in it, so it has a material in it that actually pulls moisture out of the refrigerant, and that's only so effective if you don't replace it. I do have a spare. It's not down here, so I'm not gonna replace it today. But the lines weren't open very long, and they were in a fairly non-humid garage over the winter in Minnesota. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm gonna hook up the vacuum pump, get her going, and start pulling vacuum. And you can see we are already pulling a nice consistent vacuum. I'm gonna pull down to 30 inches of mercury. Well, we are really close to 30 inches. I'm gonna leave it going just a little bit longer, but this thing's actually working pretty nice. This is I'll drop a link in the description. Cozy Vacuum. It's from Amazon. I think this whole thing with the pump and the manifold and the valves is like $100 or something. Those little cans are super cheap. They're like $20 at any auto parts store. I gotta say, it's a pretty nice little system. You can't recover with it, but big deal. Okay, so now I have the piercing valve on this canister, and what you do is you thread on the large brass piece first all the way, Then you screw this all the way in and back it about halfway out with everything connected. And then if you don't get flow, you may have to loosen the brass fitting on the can just a little bit. But what I'm gonna do right now is open up the center valve. And then I'm going to purge just a tiny bit, very carefully. I recommend wearing a glove. I don't think the can's open all the way. Give me a second. Well, she's flowing. So I've got the blue one open, which is the suction line, which is what you want. Got the can opened up. And now what I'm gonna do is get in the car, turn it on, and turn on the air conditioning. We've got good pressure. The tank is empty. You guys can't see the temperature, but it's very, very cold coming out of the vents now, so doing good. Well, as you can see, I'm in the thick of swap 2. And I'm actually putting in a new clutch pivot pin. That's what's left of the old one. These are pretty easy to do. Getting the old one out, you just pound it out from the back with a screwdriver or something. Pressure fit it. Grab your 13 mil and your extension. Just give it some tap, tap, taparoo until she is fully seated. Don't go too crazy. You don't want to crack it. They do sell upgraded steel and brass ones. I've never broken a plastic one, so your mileage may vary, but that seems just fine to me. I pop that thing in, get the retainer clip on it, fork, release bearing, should be good. And I'll be putting in a new release bearing with the clutch kit, but simple as pie. Easy peasy. I finally got the old CV off, thank goodness. Just gotta peel this little bit of boot off and put the new one on after I pack it with grease. What a pain that was. Ugh, ridiculous. It's on. I packed the ever-living bejesus out of it with grease, so I'm optimistic that that will be okay. I got the pilot bearing in. Next up's gonna be flywheel, clutch. Then I'm gonna swap diffs, because the guy wants a 293. Well, the 338's out. 293 is pretty much ready to go in. However, I'm gonna have to fill this thing with fluid first, so that's gonna involve me taking out the drain plug, because there is no fill plug on these when it's out of the car, and putting oil in it through that. So for that, I'm gonna be using some Liqui-Moly 8590 GL4, I think. Totally decent for an open diff. Not too worried about it, but it definitely feels like it's dry right now, so fingers crossed. Oh shoot, look at that. Wrong flanges. This is out of an XI. I really hope this fits if I swap the flanges. Shoot. I think we got lucky. There's our 338 with our standard 6-bolt. And here's that stupid offset 6-bolt from the XI. They look like they're compatible. Sure hope they are. Well, dodged a bullet on that one. Thank goodness. What a nightmare. I hate this swap. Gotta love the Liqui-Moly fill bottles. I'm actually just going in through the flange since I had it out anyway. These things are almost exactly 1 liter. Well, the thing is fully officially a manual. I'm running into shift linkage length issues, however. From there to the shifter, the one I've got with the ZF is wrong. It's quite a bit too short. So I guess next up for me right now is just gonna be doing the pedal assembly, the shifter in the car, and the clutch lines, and then bleed that out because there's really nothing else I can do without that shifter linkage, which sucks. Starter sounded a little funny. But it runs. take a peek under there. Maybe the dowel's not in all the way. You know it runs. Does it drive? It does. Well, she runs nice. Other than the really nasty sounding starter, which I guess must just be to, I don't know, it's it must be worn into the old automatic ring gear or something. But either way, she's good to go.